The first night in my new house, I wasn't afraid of the dark. I wasn't afraid of the empty rooms. I wasn't afraid of the silence. I was afraid of the phone call. Because the man who used to live there didn't scream. He didn't threaten me. He didn't beg. He spoke calmly. And calm voices are the most dangerous. At 11:47 p.m., my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered, and the former owner of my house said something that made my blood turn cold. I forgot to disconnect the camera, and I can still see you. I laughed at first. I thought it was a joke. Until he described exactly where I was standing. If you think this is just a story about a hidden camera, you're wrong. Because what I discovered inside that house was far more disturbing than being watched. And what I learned about grief, loneliness, and letting go changed me forever. Welcome to my YouTube channel Whisper Stories, where silence speaks. My name is Daniel, and I am 50 years old. At 50, you believe you have outgrown fear. You believe you have paid your debts to uncertainty, that sleepless nights belong to younger men chasing careers, raising children, fighting invisible wars in their own minds. By 50, you think peace is something you've earned. You are wrong. The first night in my new house, the phone rang at 11:47 p.m. And the man on the other end said calmly, I forgot to disconnect the camera. The house I thought was a fresh start. I had not planned to move at this stage of my life. But life rarely consults us before it rearranges everything. After 27 years of marriage, my wife, Claire, decided she wanted something different. That was the phrase she used, something different, as if I were a coot she had grown tired of. The divorce was civil on paper. Emotionally, it was a demolition. Our 2 children were grown and living their own lives. The house we had built together, brick by brick, paycheck by paycheck, felt like a museum of memories I could no longer afford to visit. So I sold it. The new place was smaller, a 2-story home at the edge of town, quiet neighborhood, maple trees lining the street like patient witnesses. The realtor described it as cozy with character. The former owner was an older man named Victor Hale, mid-60s, recently widowed. He was moving closer to his daughter in another state. He shook my hand firmly during closing. You'll be happy here, he said. His smile didn't quite reach his eyes. I didn't think much of it at the time. The first night was strangely peaceful. I unpacked essentials, set up my bed, and made a cup of chamomile tea like some agging monk seeking serenity. I was in the living room, surrounded by half-opened boxes, when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost ignored it. Almost. Hello. A pause, then a familiar voice. Daniel, it's Victor. Oh, everything okay? Another pause, longer this time. I forgot to disconnect the camera, he said. I frowned. What camera? The security camera in the house. My stomach tightened slightly. Where? In the living room. I instinctively looked up. Nothing obvious, just the ceiling fan and the smoke detector. You'll have to disconnect it, he continued. I can still access the feed. The silence between us thickened. Why would you still have access? I asked, keeping my voice steady. I meant to remove it before closing. Slipped my mind. Slipped his mind. I felt something cold crawl up my spine. Where exactly is it? I pressed. Another pause. You'll find it. And then he hung up. The search. It is strange how quickly peace can dissolve. The house that had felt warm an hour earlier now seemed alert, watching. I turned off the lights and used my phone flashlight, scanning every corner, bookshelves, air vents, behind picture frames left by the previous owner. Nothing. I called Victor back. Straight to voicemail. I told myself I was overreacting. Maybe it was a small plug-in device. Maybe he truly forgot. Still, I barely slept that night. At 2:13 a.m., I sat upright in bed. Because I heard something. A faint clicking sound. Downstairs. The first discovery. Morning light always feels braver than night. I made coffee and began searching again, more methodically this time. Then I noticed something. The smoke detector in the living room looked newer than the others. Slightly glossier. I grabbed a chair and carefully twisted it open. Inside, tucked beside the battery compartment, was a small black lens. Perfectly concealed. My hands trembled, not from fear, but from something deeper. Violation. Someone had watched me unpack, watched me sit, watched me breathe in what I thought was privacy. I removed the device and placed it on the table like evidence. Then I called the police. The officer's reaction. The officer who arrived was younger than my son. He examined the device. It's Wi-Fi enabled, he confirmed. Looks like it's transmitting remotely. Can he still see anything? I asked. It's not anymore. That should have comforted me. It didn't. They assured me they would look into it, but there was something in their tone, a hint that this was a minor inconvenience, not a serious threat. After they left, the house felt emptier. But not safer. The second call. That evening, my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. I let it ring. It rang again. And again. Finally, I answered. You found it, Victor said. My jaw tightened. The police have it. A small chuckle, of course they do. My heart began pounding. Why did you put it there? I demanded. Silent. Then softly. Because I wasn't ready to leave. The words hung in the air like a confession. You sold the house. I lived there 40 years, Daniel. 40 years. My wife died in that living room. My daughter took her first steps on that carpet. You think you can just walk away from that? His voice cracked. For a moment, I heard not a villain, but a broken man. That doesn't give you the right, I said quietly. No, he admitted, it doesn't. Another pause. There's another one. And the line went dead. Paranoia. I didn't sleep that night. Another one. Where? Bathroom, bedroom, kitchen. I tore through the house like a man possessed. Every vent, every outlet, every fixture. Nothing. Days passed. No new calls. But the feeling remained. At 50 years old, I had believed I understood loneliness. Divorce had taught me that. But this was different. This was being alone in a house that remembered someone else. I began to wonder if Victor was watching without cameras. If memories themselves could observe. This hidden room. It was a week later when I found something I hadn't noticed before. In the basement, behind a stack of old shelving units left behind, was a narrow wooden door. Unpainted. Almost invisible. It wasn't on the blueprints provided during the sale. My pulse quickened. I hesitated only a moment before opening it. Inside was a small room, barely 6 by 6 feet. A chair. A folding table. And a monitor. Disconnected now. But clearly once operational. On the table was a notebook. I opened it. Dates. Times. Observations. Daniel moved couch to left corner. Daniel drinks tea at 9:30 p.m. Daniel cries quietly at 1:12 a.m. My breath caught. He hadn't just watched. He had documented. Studied. Not out of malice, but out of inability to let go. The confrontation. I drove 3 hours to the address listed on Victor's forwarding information. He answered the door looking smaller than I remembered. Older. Tired. You came, he said softly. You need help, I told him. He didn't argue. We sat at his kitchen table. He stared at his hands. When my wife died, he began, the house became the only place that still felt like her. Selling it felt like burying her again. So you decided to haunt it, I asked. Tears filled his eyes. I just wanted to see that it was still alive. There it was. Not control. Not obsession. Grief. You crossed a line, I said firmly. I know. Silence stretched between us. I'll testify if necessary, he added. I deserve whatever happens. I studied him. At 50, I had believed pain was competitive. That my divorce was the worst form of loss. But sitting across from this man, I saw something different. Unprocessed sorrow can rot into something unhealthy. Get counseling, I said finally. Promise me. He nodded. I promise. The choice. The police called weeks later asking if I wanted to press full charges. I thought about the notebook. The recordings. The invasion. I thought about Claire leaving. About my own sleepless nights replaying memories that no longer belonged to me. And I realized something. Victor had installed cameras in walls. I had installed cameras in my heart. Rewatching old conversations, old laughter. Neither of us was moving forward. I don't want to press charges, I told them. But make sure he gets help. Healing. Months passed. The house slowly became mine. I painted the walls a different color. Removed the old carpet. Planted new flowers in the garden. Transformation requires action. Not just intention. One evening, I found myself sitting in the same living room. Tea in hand. But this time, I wasn't glancing at the ceiling. I wasn't listening for clicks. I was simply present. At 50 years old, my name is Daniel. And I have learned something I wish I understood sooner. Grief can turn good people into strangers, loneliness can twist love into control, and fear grows best in silence. But healing. Healing begins the moment you face what's hiding in your walls, whether it's a camera or a memory. Moral of the story. You cannot move forward while secretly watching the past. Letting go is not betrayal, it is survival. And sometimes, the scariest houses are not the ones with hidden cameras. They are the ones where we refuse to turn off our own.